to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware. Hi, welcome to the Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr, and it's a true honor to be here with you. And when I say that, I open every show with that. I really, really mean that, because this is my meditation space, my safe space, and I hope it's that for you as well. And that's the energy that the entire show is always set in. So today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is depression. Depression being classified as a disease. And if you have any friends or loved ones in your life that you know of that have this very undercurrent of their life with this theme of depression, or maybe if it's temporary depression, this is such a great show to listen to. You can also listen to this show on our podcast, which is anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can go to The Aware Show, or just look up theawareshow.com and you'll be able to find out where we broadcast there. So Lisa Miller is my guest. She is a professor and founder of Spirituality Mind Body Institute at Teachers College in Columbia University. Yes, that exists. And she says that depression can also disguise itself in many different forms, as agitation, as apathy, as a lack of creativity or motivation, as well as sadness. And it can be spawned on for a specific incident, like the death of a loved one, or a loss of a job, or loss of a pet, which is really tough. And also it can be something that is maybe biological. And she is a research scientist, and she has gone into this great body of work about the epidemic of depression and how it can be a gateway to, get this, spirituality and awakening. Her new book is called The Awakened Brain, and it's all about the research and the new science of spirituality on a quest for an inspired life. Welcome, Lisa Miller. Thank you for joining me.
I'm so really honored and grateful to be here with you. What you do for women and the spaces that you create for us as women, we just honor you and thank you.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry now. Thank you. And it's such a deep topic. You know, this is affecting millions and millions of people around the world. So maybe you could start off by talking about what is depression to you, so that people can understand maybe if they have these symptoms and don't know it.
Yes. So I have spent 2 decades studying depression, and one and only one thing does the whole field of science agree on, which is depression presents differently in different people. We don't all look the same or feel the same when we're depressed. So one person might be sort of edgy and hostile and agitated. Someone else might be really receding. You know, someone who was friendly and said hi doesn't even greet you. They're probably not being nasty. They could be really depressed. You know? So it's difficult. In fact, it's even kind of elusive sometimes to know if we or someone we love is struggling with depression. And it's very helpful to start to think, hey, wait a minute, you know, my spouse, my partner, my mother, my child, they're acting different than they were before. Maybe they're not just angry at me. Maybe they're not just, you know, doing something wrong. Maybe they're quite depressed. And I think if we can open up our heart and think, hey, you know, maybe something more is going on, it's the beginning of a road forward.
Absolutely. What about forgetfulness and mindlessness? I say this to my mom all the time, that her brain is occupied all the time. It's like a CPU running at the fullest capacity, and you can't add anything else in because the memory's full. Is that true?
Well, so I haven't had the opportunity in particular to meet your mother, although I know she has to be great because you're amazing.
She's a catalyst.
There you go. And I will say that, you know, sometimes when we are depressed, we ruminate. That's sort of spin, 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 round and round. Why did I say that to them? If I hadn't said that to him, would he have done that? If I hadn't done that, why? Round and round, the same old story. And very often it's over things that we can't even control. Why were we evicted? Why did I lose my job? Why did I say that to my child? And the rumination does not help. It really becomes a little bit of a broken record. Those old records, the big black discs that could just spin round and round at this.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're ruminating. That might even be a helpful sign. Hey, wait a minute. I'm kind of spinning round and round here. I wonder if maybe just right now, not before and not later in my life, but now there may be an episode of depression. And the good news is that depression, if we engage it, can really lead us to a great deal of growth. Depression is not lost time, it is not downtime. Even in those cases where there is a medical cause, where it's a biological depression, there's always room for us to grow through our struggle. We're
Right.
actually to do that, to grow.
Let me touch on this for a second about the rumination. Could that also be around victimization? So they're doing it to me. The injustices of the world are extremely agitating, and the wrongs of society are always I'm victimized by. Is that also along
So
that?
yes, right, exactly. So whether society has victimized me, or my ex-partner has victimized me, or my parents, and it could be perfectly accurate that indeed I was victimized, but to sit within myself, replaying that has to do with how, in terms of the catch and the catcher's mitt, I'm holding that life experience. And that's where we actually have a great deal of possibility for liberation. We don't have to be the outcome of how other people mistreated us. We can put a stake in the ground and have a process of really deepening and awakening. It's truly a spiritual awakening.
It's so interesting.
Right.
I just want to go a little bit deeper into injustice about things that are out of our control or seemingly out of our control, like, you know, national debt or this horrible war on Ukraine. I mean, is there a range? Difficult question. You know what I'm saying? But is there a range where if somebody is predisposed to depression or in a depressive episode, that they are exacerbated by these seemingly out of your control injustices?
Yes, no, and in fact, the more that you're so right, Lisa, the more that we have been depressed, the easier it is to become depressed again, because we lower the threshold. We develop sort of a way of thinking, ugh, it always happens to us. Ugh, we have nothing to say about it. A disempowered, depressogenic, depression making way of thinking.
Great. Okay. Very interesting that that is linked. And you said that these can also be a pathway to an awakening. Let's
Yeah.
look specifically at the injustice conversation again. So you're
Right.
looking at maybe this horrible war on Ukraine and the people and the
Same person,
animals.
same woman, same house, same whole story's the same. The set, the players, they're all the same. But we can choose to bring a spiritual response to suffering. We can break that spin, spin, spin rumination wheel. We have a choice to step up out of the old habit of thinking, old habit of thinking. Why is it me? There's nothing, we're not safe. Everyone does it to you. And instead, cultivate, and it's a choice, another circuit in our brain with which every single one of us in the entire world is endowed. We all have a natural circuit in the brain for spiritual awakening, what I call an awakened awareness. And that's a choice to engage our natural awakened awareness, and it breaks the cycle. And I can give you examples of that, actually.
Yes, to
Um,
be aware of it is first step. Yes, absolutely.
yes, actually, if you want, could we even do a practice?
Definitely.
Okay, good. There's actually two practices, so I'll do one now and I'll save one for later. How about that? Okay. So I'm going to invite you to clear out your inner space, close your eyes, and take 3 big, relaxing, opening breaths.
This might take a minute. Okay.
Yes, on your own time. This is your journey.
Okay.
I invite you to think of a time where you wanted something really badly and you prepared. You got A plus B plus C all set. that red door was yours. I mean, 99%. That red door, that job promotion, that man or woman to say yes, that school admission, that new home, that red door was yours.
Yes.
And you'd done everything right. So you reach for the red door, you grab the handle, you're leaning forward, and you can't believe that the door is stuck. I mean, how could it be stuck? Because you've done everything right strategically. And you might be shocked and kick the door and be angry or maybe even a little depressed because you didn't get what you wanted and you'd worked hard, fair and square, and you didn't get it, feeling a little depressed. But only because that red door was stuck. You had no choice but to turn. And you may have turned 40 degrees, you may have turned 160, 180 degrees to find a wide open yellow door. That yellow door was someone who made you feel much more alive. It was a mentor at a different school that opened up a whole profession for you. It was traveling to another part of the world. You are where you are today and who you have realized yourself to be, who you've actualized yourself to be because of that big yellow open door. Now, you might have said that yellow doors don't even exist, or who's ever heard of yellow doors? But because you made that hairpin turn, you found something not what you wanted. It was better than what you wanted. And it was certainly more right. And what I want to ask is, at that stuck red door, the hairpin turn, was there anyone that was helpful? Maybe a guide, maybe a friend told you a story, or maybe for 2 minutes you met a woman at Whole Foods who told you a story, but someone said something. Maybe a trail angel gave you guidance. And as you step back and you look at that well-planned for red door and the big hairpin turn, the trail angel, and the wide open yellow door that's made your life so much more, are the biggest, most important parts of our lives planned and built like air traffic control, totally controlled? Are we really makers of our fate? Or are we discoverers of a great journey? And if you step way back, stuck red door, hairpin turn, trail angel, wide open yellow door, where in this is your higher power? Where in your road of life is who I call God? You could say spirit, force, Hashem, Jesus, Allah, universe. Is God in the stuck red door and the open yellow door? Is God in the trail angel? Is God in you choosing to have a conversation with life that shifts from what do I want and how am I going to get it? Why didn't I get it? I wanted that too. What is life showing me now? What is life revealing to me now? What is my higher power asking of me now? And if you've had a moment like this, and most people have, you're already on the spiritual path. You're already in dialogue with Source, who I call God, looking for the yellow doors.
So many situations I can apply that to. Multiple situations I can apply that to. That was a great exercise. I invite you to do that over and over again. If you're listening to the show on the podcast, go back and think about that situation and that situation and that situation where the door has been closed. And you live long enough of that has happened. And I can think of like 3 or 4 of them where if I really took the time to look at it from a broader perspective, I can see why that door got closed, where the trail angel was, how God is in all of it, and where to go from there. The lessons, like what were the lessons at that point, and really get a different perspective on things rather than still living in the victim of it.
And that's a spiritual response to loss, disappointment, not getting what I thought I wanted. Because what I thought I wanted was only based on today, back historically in time. It's all old information. But the wide open yellow door, that holds information that I've yet to fully understand, right? Because God, spirit, universe holds information that's both in the past and into the so-called future.
Yes, yes, yes. And you said that there are different, based on your research, different parts of the brain that when you get to this awakened thinking, part of the brain, it actually thickens the
Oh,
brain.
thank you. You've read every word of the awakening.
Fascinating. I
Thank
love
you.
this.
Appreciate it. Well, so Lisa, you're absolutely right. There's two MRI studies which show us something very important about who each and every one of us is. When we turn from the stuck red door and we look at who we are to one another as trail angels, and we look from what do I want and how am I going to get it to what is life showing me now, we start to realize that actually in life we are guided and we are loved, we are held, we are never alone. And that deep realization is the cornerstone of a healthy life. It is the cornerstone of resilience. It is the cornerstone of recovery from addiction, depression, to realize that we are in a loving, guiding relationship, that we are never alone. It's not a belief, it is the capacity with which each and every one of us is endowed in our brain to perceive that we are loved and held, guided to the yellow door, and never alone with trail angels. And we show up as trail angels. Now, what does that look like in the brain? Loved and held. The bonding network comes up online just as we were held as children in our parents' arms. Loved and held, guided. We go from a very narrow top down, gotta have it, dorsal to a bottom up, ventral attention network where suddenly the world is big and bright and many opportunities. And boop, many people say the right thing pops. Guided, loved and held, guided. And the parietal that puts in and out the separate boundaries. So, you're in LA and I'm in Connecticut, and we are also part of one family of life. We are unique at different GPS coordinates and we have different bio bodysuits, and we are whitecaps on one ocean. We're a point and we're a wave, never alone. Loved and held, guided, never alone. This is how every brain is built. Whether I am Catholic, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, spiritual, and not religious, I say that the forest is my sanctuary. It doesn't matter. The outward statement, the way we sort of make sense of it all, is really secondary to the deep foundational neuro docking station of the transcendent relationship, who I call God. Some say higher power. Whatever one's word is, it's the same neuro docking station.
Right. So we're connected via a neural network, whether or not you believe in any deity. You could be an atheist and you're still going to be connected to the neural network of humanity, right?
Oh, so Lisa, that's so important. The opposite of awakened awareness is not being an atheist. The opposite of awakened awareness, of spiritual awareness, is to be a radical, I call it Mighty Mouse, anthropocentric. All there is splintered humans, and all we fight for is ourselves, and we're all mighty. Air traffic control on steroids, Mighty Mouse. And that is a view that is completely untenable. You cannot go through life successfully thinking that humans control everything. For instance, the weather, even air traffic control works around the weather.
But you just explained the government, though.
So,
I mean, really, if you think about it, the current type of political environment I'm talking about is individuals working and dividing each other. If you really look at it.
And we have now the opportunity, you, me, all of us, for a spiritual response to this suffering. And the spiritual response says that we are a point and we are a wave, meaning, okay, this one might have a blue t-shirt and a red t-shirt, and they think this idea and she thinks that one. It doesn't matter, because we're like rays of the sun. We're emanations from one bright, godly source. We're like whitecaps on the ocean. We are all part of one sea. So this is an illusion of radical separateness. It is an illusion of so-called oppositionalism that is really because we're not using our awakened brain. But it's a choice this second to wake up to the fact that at the heart, we are sisters and brothers. And I don't mean that because it's a nice thought. I mean, we are literally sisters and brothers. People are 98% identical.
It's fascinating. I mean, it can be taken so many different ways, because if you look at that from a maybe conspiracy theory perspective, that group of conspiracy theorists feel like they are all part of a same tribe. Same people that feel that, that believe, the aliens and abduction, they are a very close-knit tribe. So if you think about it, you can have those I mean, I'm broadening this conversation, I realize, but you can have those types of pockets within your belief systems, right?
Well, so Lisa, I'm 56. When I was 16, I'm not kidding. If you looked at a magazine, like a People magazine or 17 magazine, the advertisements literally always had people dating each other who looked the same. They had the same bio bodysuit. They were both
Right.
black, they were both white. Like, it was ridiculous. It was like a tribal world. And for my kids, they would be like, "What on earth? Why is everybody like a bookend?" They see the world. My children, who are now in their early 20s, see the world as one family. They truly do. And it includes our different appearances, our bio bodysuit, which is a very, I think, superficial thing. It includes our ideas, which is sort of still moderately superficial, because who are we really? You're a soul on earth. And the guy who's really annoying right now, he's actually a soul on earth too. We're souls on earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so you were talking about the different brains and the brain that is connected and awakened and part of this fabric of humanity, no matter the belief system, looks thicker and different than that is in a chronically fatalistic, depressed state and
Yes.
suppressed state, right?
We're on to, I think, perhaps the most important point, which is depression is a knock at the door for a deepening of spiritual life. It is how we are wired, but we have to say yes to it and take the journey. Whether it's through prayer, what God are you asking of me now? Whether it's through meditation, whether it's through service, and we start to feel connected once again. But we've got to take the journey. We have to walk the path. And the dark night of the soul, the struggle of emptiness, is actually the trailhead for this deep plunge into a spiritual love that is so much more than we've ever felt, to a kindness and a compassion for other, to a close relationship to who I call God, or someone might say the force in life. But depression is a invitation. Now, if I do not take that invitation, right, and I just keep with ruminating and I keep feeling depressed, I can really have a downward spiral. It is completely possible that without a spiritual response to suffering, without mental health treatment, I can have a downward spiral. And what we see over time, you know, 4 years, 8 years, we did a study over 8 years, is that when day in and day out, okay, things go wrong. I didn't get the job. Okay, I'm really disappointed. My son, isn't going to marry the girl I wanted him to marry. Okay, we take these disappointments. And if we develop a spiritual response and say, well, it is my son's path, or God will have the job that is right for me open up, then we develop a very strong cortex, which is like a muscle in the brain. And the regions of the awakened brain become thick and strong, like trees, thick trees in the jungle, lots and lots and lots of neurons, thick trees, which means that we are more able, each time we offer a spiritual response to suffering, it becomes second nature to do it the next time. And we, without even trying, after a while, start to see life as yellow doors, as guided. We start to walk into life with our spiritual eyes open. In the brain, that means that the broad and pervasive regions that would be thin, they'd have cortical thinness, meaning weak processing power. In people with recurrent major depression, those very same regions actually grow thick and strong, which means that we are protected against the next episode of depression. Our go-to place with this thick, strong cortex across the regions of the awakened brain means that the next time I don't get the job, the next time something goes wrong, I actually am protected against a recurrence of depression.
Mm.
Neuro protected.
Wait, what was that last piece? What protected?
Neuroprotective. So
Okay.
the point is that by strengthening the muscle, we are stronger when we lean into the next traumatic event. So it's extremely important, not just for our recovery, but we are girded against a subsequent depression when we build the muscle of spiritual awareness.
Fascinating. So you can really get to that place of the brain being thickened and stronger the more you connect to the possible humanity, that possible human, that the possibility of life, the connectedness of all that is in humanity.
loved and held, guided, and never alone. And we can show up for each other that way. I
I
mean,
love that.
AA is so remarkably successful because every member shows up for each other so that we might all feel loved, held, and guided, and no one's ever left alone. And
Yes.
two-thirds of people to recover through AA say they had a spiritual awakening, half spontaneously and half by chipping away at it. So for many people, the direct transcendent relationship is part of their journey.
Very good. Very good. So, what about, is it possible to be born depressed or clinically, biologically depressed?
Yes, it's absolutely the case that we are not all equally predisposed to depression, that there's a genetic component. But Lisa, what's absolutely so promising and full of hope is that if I'm someone who is genetically at high risk, say my mother and my grandmother were depressed, and I both got the gene, I may or may not have gotten the gene, say I did get the gene, and I grew up under the rain cloud of that depressogenic thinking. So I'm totally at high risk. If I find a spiritual path within or without a tradition, then I am not just 75% protected against depression like most people. As someone at high risk, I am 90%
Wow.
protected against depression. I am more protected than the next person if I have a strong spirituality under the rain crowd full of risk. So it's this extraordinary reversal of our
Yes.
lives from feeling like we're a train about to hit the wall to, wow, I can really turn this around. It's a choice.
You have this incredible journey you've been through. Now, would you say you were always an optimistic person?
I would say I've always been an optimistic person, yes. But I will share with you that I think there are times in our lives. So it can be, for instance, coming of age, it can be crossing the bridge at midlife or into elderhood, or it can be life events, as it was in my life, a struggle with infertility, that, life events or chapter breaks where there are developmental depressions that are profound, that are strong, but that indeed are also that knock at the door for a deepening of our spiritual heart. And I'll share a bit about my journey if that's okay.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So, when I was 30, I was one step away from a child bride. I was married at 24. And my husband and I,
Young.
right, since college, we'd met one summer. And so 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, I'm 30. It's time now to start a family. And so, in the same way that, he had the job he wanted and I was doing the work I wanted to do, and we planned the lives, you can hear it, radical control, radical achieving awareness, air traffic control. Time now to have a family as if we're going to pull the switch. And so we took a little vacation. We went to the Caribbean, St. Martin. We came back, no baby. And I thought, oh, well, but one for one, nobody gets one for one. So we went out to the Southwest, Sedona, full of spirituality, no baby. And this went on, you know, for about 6 months. And I started to get this really haunting, creeping feeling like, wait a minute, what if we can't conceive? And I didn't even want to acknowledge that at first. I pushed it off. I kept it sort of half a foot from me, but it was undeniable that no baby was coming. And so after a year, I went to an infertility clinic. And I'm 30 right now. I'm like 31. And I have to confess, I'm embarrassed to say I went in feeling like, oh, the cards are in my favor. I'm 31. Everyone else here looks 10, 15 years older than me. I'll be fine. And sure enough, the doctor echoed that, oh, you're so young and you're healthy and he's healthy. We will get you pregnant. It's the illusion of control in and through every corner of our
Wow.
culture. Radical illusions of control. Achieving awareness is what I call it. Strategy, tactics are going to somehow make everything happen that I think I want. Right. Well, this got, after a couple of years, very depressing. The IVF,
Wow.
IVFs are not comfortable. IVFs are uncomfortable. And because IVF involves this little tiny fertilized embryo, it's kind of like your mini child. You think, oh, and now the baby's going to grow. And then when the baby doesn't grow, it felt to me like a funeral. It
Oh,
looked like these little tiny embryo babies had died inside of me. And I started getting really depressed. And my husband did too, to the point where one night I looked over and he's not in bed and he's on the ground. And he's, here's the guy who has everything he thinks he wanted outwardly. And he says, our lives are hollow and meaningless. without children.
Oh.
All he wanted was a child. Right.
Mm.
So deep in my heart, I kept researching and researching. How am I going to find the right doctor? This guy's not doing it. We're going to go to the one with the best rates in New York, best rates of conception. A year later, no baby. Okay, in New England, the best rates in all the Northeast. We found the people who invented in vitro. I mean, you got to
You're quite the researcher.
That's my day job. So that's all I did, right? Like a motorcycle, full guns. I'm going to find. And this notion was red door, red door, red door, right?
Mm.
And at some point, I started to feel the call that even though I wasn't getting what I wanted, and it hurt so badly. And there's nothing selfish about wanting to be a parent. It's not like I wanted a Ferrari, It's
Right.
like,
This is 3 years of this.
yes, no, we're at 3 years. We're at 3 years. That something just felt like it wasn't fitting right. And that in my deep heart, in my gut inner wisdom, I knew I was in the wrong office. I knew that for us in our path, this was not about biological infertility. Something felt wrong about how we were approaching this. So, as confirmation, we're on the 11th in vitro with the team that invented in vitro in Philadelphia, my husband by my side in solidarity on bed rest so that this embryo might take. And we'd splurged because this was a big, important night. We're at a nice hotel. He grabs the remote, clicks on it, and we can't change the channel. The fancy overpriced hotel for our infertility, R&R, and we can't turn the TV. So we had no choice but to watch one channel, 4 hours of a documentary, Lisa, on a orphan. A street child is filmed in a garbage dump, living in piles and piles of trash. And through a translator, this little boy says, I don't care that I live in a garbage dump. I don't care that I can't go to school. But it hurts so much to not be loved that I sniff glue to make the pain go away.
Mm.
All he wanted was a mother. All he wanted was a mother and a father, a parent. And my husband, who's like the civilian on this spiritual stuff, looked at me and he's like, can't you see there's a child out there for us?
Wow.
With a synchronicity, far too unprobabilistic to have happened by chance. There's a child out there for us, clear as day.
Goodness. What a story.
And women are good at reading synchronicities. We have a real gift of using multiple forms of intelligence and seeing the deeper nature. Women are great at this. And synchronicity opened the yellow door time and time again for us. It wasn't what we wanted. It was better than what we wanted. And as this was going on, there was quite an experience. I was asleep next to Phil, kind of getting the picture that there might be a child out there for us. And suddenly, 3 a.m., and there was this deep felt sense of a rhythm, like a deep rhythm of life, of someone called the rhythm of earth, Gaia, the rhythm of life, spirit. And I sat up, like, boom, 3 a.m., when the veil's thin, right? Yeah. Time and space open, and it's numinous, and a very strong, loving, but very strong, serious presence said, if you were pregnant, would you adopt? And I said, I have to be honest, no. And so we continued down our path, right?
Mm.
Time and space closed. Everything went very still and gentle and silent. I look at Phil. He's cold asleep. He missed the entire thing. He's out cold.
Okay.
He pops in like a cameo at important moments to say those things, but he's out cold for this profound moment. So we continue down our path, and the synchronicities just heated up, which said to me that, again, I'm still not getting what I think I want, but I am loved and held.
Did you tell him about this presence?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He comes from a mother who has mystical experiences, so it was within his band of awareness. And still, I think because he comes from a mother who has these experiences, he's like, okay, I'll let you handle that.
Can't control that. Don't know what to do with it. Okay, fine. So you went down the path of the in vitro still.
I couldn't resist it. I couldn't let it go. So here I had this deep call, this profound gift that I was on a path. And I couldn't, like, I sticky fingers. I couldn't let go of this, almost out of like a rumination habit of its own, you know? So I get a call, and it's from my mother. My mom is so sweet. She's like the shaman in my life. And she says, you know, honey, I just want you to know that our neighbor adopted the most adorable little boy. His name is John Paul, and he couldn't be cuter. And she adopted him from Russia. And I just wanted you to know.
Wow. Okay. Another sign dropped in.
Right. Trail angel. Trail angel can be someone you met for 2 seconds or someone who's never said that before. That's part of your life. Right. And I thought, well, okay, the little boy in the garbage dump, my mother's call, will investigate this. And so we find a clergyman's daughter, very spiritual woman, who has helped hundreds of babies find their homes, form families. And at that point, she was bringing babies from Ukraine and Russia. Okay. And this was, right around the year 2000. And I walked into her office and walls and walls, Lisa, it was so beautiful. Smiling little babies united with their new families. And sometimes they were tiny little babies with, like 8 months with their new families. Sometimes they were 4 and 5 years old, and their whole lives, they'd wanted only one thing, which was to be loved. And these were just like, I've to this day, goosebumps. It was the most sacred place I'd ever been. And brought families together.
Yes.
And finding your spiritual child, it's so she turned to me and she said, what do you want in a child? Okay. And again, that's back to kind of, mail order and menu driven. And I said, I don't care if this is a boy or a girl. I certainly don't care what race the child is, but please, a child who can love.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that finding your spiritual child idea is where you start, because I also believe that the souls find each other, and they find each other way before they incarnate into the biological suit, as you call it, which I love.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I said, boy, girl, I don't care what the child looks like, please, a child who could love. And my husband, the civilian, says all that, but kind of a girl.
I love it. Oh, you got a cough there going. Oh, no.
So, okay, we leave the office. I get a call from another trail angel. My name's Lisa Jane. My middle name is Jane. And the big Jane in my family is my older cousin. Hey, little Jane, it's Big Jane. I know you study spirituality, but there's a healing ceremony, and I think you should come. Get on a plane. So Big Jane calls Little Jane. And, no one talks to me this way in life. You think you're so smart, Miss Columbia professor. You're studying about spirituality. Why don't you come out here and actually go to a healing ceremony? The Lakota will be hosting a healing ceremony. I work with the chief. You're invited.
Wow.
It felt like a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, you can't pass that up. I've done that before. It's incredible.
And women know when there's a knock at the door. That was a clear synchronicity. She didn't call me 2 years ago. She hasn't called me since to invite me to a healing ceremony. It was right then. So I get on a plane. I cancel all my commitments. I go out to the Lakota community in South Dakota. Incredibly gracious, incredibly wise community. And sitting up there, there's a huge healing ceremony. The chief opens up. And as he opens up, his eyes swell with tears, and he pounds his heart, and he says, my son, who I adopted. I'd flown all the way from New York to South Dakota to hear my son, who I adopted, open the healing ceremony. We shared the healing ceremony. The men went to theirs, and the women went to their own inipi, sweat lodge. And sitting in the sweat lodge, the medicine man's wife, is how she introduced herself, said, can we each share why we have come? And the first woman says, my son is 41. He's not coming home. I fear for his family. And everyone looks at her with total openness, total presence. And then the next woman speaks, my son, he's 14 and he's starting to use drugs. I'm worried. The next woman speaks of her son, and we go all the way around the NIPI, and it's getting hot, and I'm hot. They turn to Big Jane. I'm last in the circle. And Big Jane says, this is my cousin, little Jane. And she's come looking for her child. She's had a very hard time finding her child. And I'm wondering if we could help her. And for the first time, I knew, in the way that women know in our deep inner wisdom, that I was in the right place. And I look around the circle, and the women look at me with love and presence, and they're like, yes.
Wow.
We start to pray, and it gets very hot, and we pray. And when we pray, we're praying for each other and ourselves. And Lisa, there was this felt sense like we're praying for the we, for the us, for the collective. And then whoosh, in my mind's eye, just as when the presence had come, I could see the prayer go up. So that night, to this day, I'll try not to cry. So that night, I was out in South Dakota. A call came into our machine in New York, and it said, we have found the Miller's child. I know Mr. Miller had wanted a girl, and there are many wonderful girls, but we know, said the clergyman's daughter, that this is the Miller's child, and this is a son. All the women praying for sons.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
I felt this joy, this elation. And finally, I mean, first of all, I felt so grateful that this beautiful little boy was out there, and it felt so bright, and it felt so buoyant, and it felt, beyond yellow doors. It was 100 yellow doors flinging open with a red carpet. It felt so
Yes.
And it felt like finally the world made sense, that the things that are most important are miracles, and they're not what you want. They're better than what you want. And you could never write it based on yesterday's story. So, I get home, the tape comes, there's this beautiful little boy with his arm around the nurse, da, 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 like very positive, very full of joy, very Russian, da, 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 right?
Uh-huh.
And I feel this love like I've never felt. It's this soaring love. And in that second, I became a parent. I would have done anything for the sweet, pure little boy. I go to
Soul
bed.
connection.
Yes, a soul connection, Lisa. Exactly. So we go to bed. We're feeling so happy. We're feeling really close. The presence comes back that night. I can feel it coming. I sit up, feels out cold. Again, that numinous sense, time and space opens. I'm sitting straight up. If you were pregnant, would you adopt? And I said, absolutely. This is my spiritual child. This is my spiritual son. Absolutely. And I had become someone prepared to inherit parenthood as a spiritual call. Right? This is my spirit. He doesn't need to have my nose or Phil's mind, or I mean, this is my spiritual child. He's not parts and pieces. It's who God, spirit, life has brought. And that night, we conceived his sister. After 5 years of infertility treatments, the kind of a girl, the spiritual twin.
My goodness. My goodness. So you went to finding this place inside of you that was acceptance, and you lifted yourself out of the depression to this place of acceptance, and it opened up the yellow door for you.
I would say I gave up what I thought I wanted to take the journey. I didn't know where I was going. I knew I was getting this baby. I wasn't conceiving. I was 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. I wasn't conceiving. But I started opening up from how am I going to get this? How am I going to research that other doctor? Maybe there's someone on the West Coast, to being an open system. What is life showing me? I'm going to let go of what I thought I wanted and see where life is guiding me. Hand it over to my higher power. Follow the golden thread. I'm going to be in a conversation with who I am.
It's fascinating because we have in my family sphere 3 adoptions, and I just remembered that as we were speaking, because it doesn't, I mean, 45 minutes into our conversation, because it's all a spiritual family, it's all a soul family.
Yes.
And for those who are in this position, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, that are not able to conceive and have tried for a very long time, what advice would you give them? And what has worked out for you in the long run? I
Oh,
mean, two kind of different questions, but
so
yes.
important. I don't view this a story about how at the end we got pregnant. This is a story about realizing that the right child comes in the right way at the right time. And
Okay.
God makes families. People don't make families, whether it's through our bodies or through the trail or through adoption or marriage. People don't make families. Spirit, life, source, God makes families. And the right child comes at the right time. Our son, who we named Isaiah Lakota, for the people who helped us bring him.
Oh, yes. Wonderful. Yes.
I mean, he's pure love. He just, he saved our lives, right?
Mm.
And then came his sister, and she's pure love. And, the right child comes in the right way, and that is your spiritual child.
And maybe you were given this entire experience so that you could impact the lives of others around. You wrote an entire book around this, The Spiritual Child, right?
The
The
spiritual
whole,
child. And the awakened brain, the book, The Awakened Brain, is really about the fact that whether it's a child or it's something else in our lives, that big golden carrot that we think we want so badly actually is enough to get us up out of the chair to go start down a spiritual path full of hairpin turns.
mm,
And use our awakened brain, we get a life that is so, I mean, I want, Lisa, you're on a spiritual path. I want all our friends here, because we love them, to have a great life. And I want
yes.
to have an inspired life. And that means that the thing they think they wanted is going to quickly pale and seem stale. It's not what you think you want. It's what life is showing you. And where you go is so much better. The deepening of our love for each other, the people who show up, like look at you, Lisa. It's such an incredible world out there, and it's not at all what I thought I wanted.
And you listened, though. You were open enough to listen to that presence. You were open enough to go to that sweat lodge. You were open enough to at least have that window of opportunity. And that, I feel, is the key for people that are stuck in that place of depression, that don't know they're depressed and don't know the first thing about getting out of it. Openness is a really, really great place to start.
Well, and as women, we're good at that. So, what I would offer is trust your deep inner wisdom, trust a synchronicity, trust, by all means, trust a mystical experience. Women are good at perceiving. And then it is that much more important that we take as hard data, real knowing, these gifts of perception. Because when you look at the data, women are 50% more likely to be depressed than men, unless they have strengthened what I call the awakened brain, unless they've strengthened their natural spirituality, which means trusting what you receive through prayer and meditation. That means trusting the synchronicity, which means trusting your deep inner wisdom. And when we do that, then it's not only are we no longer as depressed, we have this big life that's full of love and connection. It's beautiful.
Men have it too. I mean, it's a way of listening into that intuition and following the right signs and knowing in your gut something's wrong and it being open to something new. We all have that ability, but it is a special sanctuary space to be able to listen to it.
I
Yeah, a
agree.
lot of,
Lisa,
it's
you're right. Men and women have this. We all have this. But I emphasize it for women because I think women have gotten this message from society that that's not real. And what I want to say is it is real. And I can tell you where in the brain it lands. And I can tell you that your whole life will be much more full of love and resilience if you know that your inner gift is real.
and especially this idea that depression is the gateway into the awakened brain. Now, you just did a wonderful global event for our youth, and I think that's also a very important topic to talk about with college students, teenagers, especially post-pandemic. There's a lot going on there. So you did this event. Can you tell me a little bit about what your, like we've talked about men and women, what about our youth?
Yes. So, and again, you're so right. Men and women, we're all spiritual beings. But at times I do emphasize women because we hear these messages that our knowing isn't real, and it is. It doesn't need to be sidebarred. It can be put in the middle, like we're doing. So the youth, well, the statement of the problem is heartbreaking, which is there have never been these rates of addiction, depression, and even suicide in the United States and in post-industrial global culture, UK, Europe. There have never half, it's actually 46%, nearly half of Gen Z, 18 through 25, have a disease of despair. They feel seized by anxiety. They're so depressed that they don't want to get out of bed. They're hopeless.
Wow. Over almost half. Wow. Almost half. That's an extraordinary amount.
Well, and so the question is, how did we get here? Right. And if
Yes.
you look, 40 years ago, in a good attempt to be inclusive, the United States threw all religion out of the public square. And with that went the spiritual baby with the bathwater in our boardrooms, in our schoolrooms, in our family playgrounds, everywhere. And with that went pluralism, where you tell me about Christmas and I tell you about Hanukkah, and someone else tells me about Diwali, and we share these beautiful moments in our lives. And you tell me about the crossing of an ancestor or birth of a child at a spiritual level. And I know of what you speak, and you know of what I speak, because deep spirituality is innate. Religion is a beautiful embrace, a telling of our deep spirituality, but I know what you mean, because we have universal spiritual hearts and minds. Well, when we lost that, we became a spiritually non-conversant society. And 40 years is long enough for someone to grow up, have a child who's now 18, who has never in his or her life had the opportunity to learn about the deep awakened capacity with which we're all endowed, has never prayed, has never meditated, has never read any sacred text, has never watched a grandparent keep a tradition. This is a loss that our society's never seen. And those who pay the price are Gen Z. Because for the first time, spirituality is 1/3 innate, 2/3 environmentally formed. That can include the faith tradition or anything else. For the first time, we have young adults who have not been supported, who've not strengthened the muscle of spiritual awareness. And they are more susceptible than in human history to depression, addiction, and tragically suicide. The rate of death by suicide now rivals the rate of death by auto accident.
Right, because there's not a belief system of something larger and greater than yourself, or equally the belief system you're a part of a greater whole, that you're a part of something that is more, that is larger than you. And it doesn't have to necessarily be spirituality. I mean, it doesn't have to be religion. It could be any type of spirituality that has to do with a belief system greater than you. It could be angels. It could be, any type of, it could be, well, Buddhism believes in equality and so forth, but it also has a faith system of compassion. And, there's a lot of different faith systems out there that, I think a lot of the defecting from traditional religion, Lisa, had to do with because religion wasn't working for this new generation. And some of the old traditions were no longer working for their language. And so, yep, baby got thrown out with the bathwater. And that has I hate that, but anyway, that has a lot to do with what's happening now. And I think it is getting back to that by just finding something that is a belief system greater than you, or that you're a part of a whole, and being raised in a spiritual household with that, even if it's around animals, knowing that you have a nonverbal communication with a compassionate, unconditionally loving being. Could just be animals in the house. I really feel that that's something that's missing. And there's a lot of children that are being raised without religion, without spirituality, without animals. Check the boxes.
And of all of the dimensions of spiritual life, the one that most strengthens the brain is service, love of neighbor, altruism. So when we just show up for that neighbor next door, who maybe needs the walk to be plowed, who maybe needs groceries to be purchased, who maybe just needs someone to talk for 2 minutes, we literally strengthen the spiritual brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's an epidemic of loneliness out there as well, in our older community as well as the younger community. And they might just need each other.
And we have everything we need to fix it. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
choice right now, this moment. I'm
Hmm.
going to show up. I'm going to get up, go next door, and just say I'm checking in, you know?
Hmm. Yes, yes, absolutely. There's so much that we've covered here, and there's so much more to cover. And you can also go to Lisa's website, which is lisamillerphd.com. And there's a lot of great resources and information there for those of you who are listening to the show and not watching it. Or you can go to our podcast and you can get Lisa's information there from the description and the notes. The Awakened Brain is the name of the book, and The Spiritual Child is also an incredible book. And you know what I love about podcasts is that you can share right from there. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Oh, Lisa, it's wonderful to be with you. Have me back. I love talking to you.
I love it too. I love it too. Thank you so much for the deep being that you are. I've really, really loved our connection with
You're a
anything.
deep, beautiful, soulful being, Lisa. Bless you.
Bless you too. And all of my incredible listeners out there, please have a wonderful day and check into this information, check into yourself and find out if there's a place there where you can listen deeply to that innate spiritual message inside of you. Intuition, you can call it whatever you want, for the signs that it's trying to tell you and the redirections and the yellow doors. Thank you again. I am Lisa Garr, and until next time, I invite you to stay aware.